Welcome to Life is for Living. I'm your host, Kylee Buckley, and I'm here with David J Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good to be here.
David, today I would like for you to share and to speak on burnout and breakdowns, having a breakdown, and what's the difference, and are there similarities?
All right. Well, maybe we could frame this talk with an old saying familiar to most counsellors. When the outgoings exceed the incomings, the upkeeping will be your downfalling.
Hmm.
And what we're basically talking about here is going into emotional overdraft. Running on emotional overdraft is unsustainable. If there's more emotional energy going out than is coming in, first of all, you're going to get a warning. It'll be a loss of enthusiasm. And then you'll begin to brown out. Before burnout, it seems like God gives us a warning. And how we know we're in brownout is because there's no more joy or enthusiasm in doing what you once really enjoyed. You're going through the motions. It's as if you go out the door to work, your body goes left, but your heart goes right. And now we've got a disconnect growing between your body, where your body is, and where your heart is. And so the first thing I check with people in brownout and a precondition to burnout is your heart and your body in the same place? In the marriage bed, in the church, in the home, at work, is your heart where your body is? Or do you need to move your body to where your heart is? Because that disconnect is causing a person to hemorrhage enthusiasm for what they do, and to lose ownership of their own life and their own choices. And may I say that if you move from ownership into obligation, I have noticed that obligation is one of the fastest ways into burnout. Running on obligation is just not sustainable. And you'll find that due to mortgage commitments, due to moral commitments, due to family commitments, due to the need to hang on until the pension comes, you can sell your soul for the superannuation. You can stay somewhere that your heart left long ago. I once asked a preacher in the pulpit after the meeting, I said, "Sir, when did your heart leave the pulpit?" And he said, "Oh, my heart's still in the preaching." And I said, "I don't think so. I think that you were going through the motions of preaching, but your heart was somewhere else." It's a bit like challenging an actor who really isn't cutting the mustard. What were you thinking about while you were reciting those lines? Because if you're not living the lines, then your heart isn't in the passion of the action. And those actors don't last very long. Now, it's the same in any job. You need to have your heart in what you're doing. Right now, there's nowhere on God's earth I would rather be than with you, Kylee, doing this work. Why? Because my heart's still in it. I've been counseling now for about 40 years, and I have just as much enthusiasm for every new client that comes into my clinic as I did 40 years ago. And if I did not, I would need to practice what I teach and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the key is, if you're running on obligation, you've got to think, do I need to move my body to where my heart actually is? Or do I need to move my heart back to where my body is? When a woman's husband's heart moves out of the home, she gets very, very concerned because he doesn't want to play with the kids. He's not in a hurry to come home. And on the weekends, he certainly doesn't enjoy working around the house. His body is there, it's being fed and pampered, but his heart is no longer there. And that's a problem. And so to carry on in that state, you're now hemorrhaging a moral energy.
Mm-hmm.
You get a warning, you can't concentrate, you get a warning, the fridge hasn't been cleaned out for months, you get a warning, the place is in a mess, the grass is too long and the weeds are growing, because you can't find the motivation or the energy to fix those rotten weatherboards, paint that wall, or mend the door. You're just not there anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very concerning to see somebody in your own family who is losing their oomph, losing their chutzpah, losing their enthusiasm. Interestingly enough, the Greeks thought that enthusiastic people were filled with God. And so entheos became enthusiasm. But conversely, depressed people, it may be said, act as if they are empty of God. And quite often there's a moral conscience issue, or there's a hopelessness issue, or there's a sense of despair. I've married the wrong person, but I can't leave my family. I'm in the wrong job, but I can't afford to change jobs. I go to church and get nothing out of it. Or at work, I'm just going through the motions. So I have a lot of sympathy and compassion for burnouts. And I've said to them, people who have the reins of their own life don't burn out. It's people that are running on overdraft and people who feel under heavy obligation and duress to stay where they are. They're the ones that leak that emotional energy. And they become more and more pessimistic about themselves, about their family, about their life. It's all really an expression of powerlessness, isn't it? Powerless to stop the train, powerless to jump off, powerless to do a U-turn. So getting back the reins of your own life is a big deal. The other thing I've found often in burnout is somebody who doesn't have assertiveness skills and they're yoked up to somebody who's going in the wrong direction, or they're yoked up to somebody who's got them under coercion. Maybe they're narcissistic, maybe they're a bully, and there's just a general despair because there's nothing I can do about it. I teach them assertiveness skills, I teach them pushbacks, I teach them to get back a balance of power. If they have perceived the other person to have all the power and they don't have any, then what's left but despair and disappointment?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find that victims do have quite a high rate of burnout. Now, often they don't get counselling. They take a holiday, they go to the Gold Coast, they go to the Sunshine Coast, they spend a lot of money and they feel a lot better. They've been rested. That's nice. But a week after they get back, the hopelessness is back, and now they've got a 10 grand overdraft to pay off as well. You can just dig yourself into a hole trying to escape burnout. Some people have an affair. That's not going to help. If you think you've got problems before the affair, think again, because afterwards it's going to be even worse. Now you've got guilt as well. And speaking of guilt, guilt can also corrode and undermine energy. It's hard to believe in yourself when you're feeling guilty. It's hard to back yourself when you're feeling condemned. So those are just some of the things that I look for in the first 30 minutes of sitting down with somebody whose get up and go has just got up and gone, and they don't know how to get it back. You'll frequently find that they'll try and fix themselves, try and heal themselves, and yes, they have a good rest, and yes, they get back into it, but now they're only running on 3 cylinders. 1 cylinder isn't firing. And that's because it's a do-it-yourself fix-up. And do-it-yourself fix-ups I'm very suspicious of, Kylie, because how do you see your own blind spots? If you're too proud to see a counsellor or get some help, who's going to spot the lies and the mistaken beliefs that you're functioning beneath? Who's going to tell you that you're working too hard, you're not getting enough sleep, you weren't made to work 12 and 14-hour days, you're not taking a Sabbath, you can't mock God and get away with it. There's some blind spots there that we have to address, and I have to look out for those as I'm listening to their story.
Mm-hmm. So, if somebody is recognizing that they are potentially in burnout, what are some things that they can do to address it? Because sometimes it could be easy, like if you've got a lot of things on your plate, prioritize what's important and get rid of the rest, or shorten off your time spent at the office.
Well, the first thing I would do, because I'm in the profession, is make an appointment with a counsellor to just get a preliminary strategy sorted out. A counsellor might look at you and say, right, is this operating under a lie? Do you have a depressive hypothesis in your head that's actually driving you into the ground? Or is there a fight you can't resolve with your spouse or your in-laws or your child or teenager? Or do you hate the job because you're not there on your own terms? I just want to do a big picture summary to see if I can give you a strategy to get you started and pointed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
If it might mean that you're going to have to go and counter proposition your boss, or it might mean you have to move your house, move houses, because where you're living means, 2, 3, 4 hours commuting every day. You're not being fair to yourself.
Right.
So I just find that when people do a do-it-yourself fix-up, they often head off in the wrong direction or gallop off into three different sunsets. I just shake my head. So I would like to make sure that they have a good strategy they can follow, and we put plenty of rungs in their ladder so that they can climb out of this pit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, here in your book, you have 10 possible causes. We'll briefly go through them. The
Sure.
first one is trying to keep one step ahead of a hideous feeling.
If powerlessness is your unbearable feeling, you're going to spend all day trying to get control. And guess what? Nobody can get total control.
True.
So that one's a loser for a start. Number two, avoiding disappointment. You spend your days trying to avoid any disappointment because your brain can't distinguish between disappointment and utter despair. But the problem with avoiding any disappointment is you become hard to live with, and your marriage suffers, your family suffers, your children suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's somebody who doesn't do disappointment. So they don't do cooperation, and they don't do negotiation, and they don't do compromise. So that's a good place to start. Are they being chased around by an unbearable feeling that's stalking them the whole time?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, point number two, lost the reins, not working in one's real gifting due to being dominated by a big person or circumstances.
Oh, this is such a hard one because basically what they're doing is they're striving. They're not functioning or flowing in their gifting, their talent, their ability. They're striving in some realm because they don't want to disappoint mum or dad or uncle or the boss or their spouse. They're a square peg in a round hole, and that just gets demoralizing after a while. They've never actually taken the time to check out their motivational giftings or their natural talents. Maybe they should be playing music, writing poetry, taming animals. Maybe they should be raising vegetables or looking after children. But if they're not doing according to their natural talent, they will be striving, and striving just becomes exhausting.
Yes.
You can do a job that isn't suited to you for a little while, but when it's all you've got, hope is deferred, Kylie, and the Bible reminds us that when hope is deferred, the heart gets sick.
Hmm. Okay, is there guilt from a bad conscience, unexpressed remorse, undermining regret? You spoke on that a little bit just earlier.
Anything that generates self-hatred is bad for business, and guilt can generate self-hatred. False guilt can generate self-hatred. Uh, a sense of failure, a sense of regret with no way of fixing it. All of those things can become self-hatred. And tell me, how can you be enthusiastic for somebody you don't like? And what if that person is yourself?
Right.
Because you're not proud of your history, you're not proud of your record, you're not proud of your criminal conviction, you're not proud of what you did to somebody else while you're intoxicated, you're not proud of failures after your parents handed everything to you on a plate. It's hard to love a loser, and when a loser is you, it's even harder.
Hmm. Okay. Simply working too long and too hard. Always symptom, symptomatic, sorry, of a deeper problem.
Well, we've all heard of the hero that can work 12 or 14 or 16 hours a day, etc., etc., and they survive on 3 hours sleep, and you just wonder how they do it. Well, the answer is they do it for a very short time.
Mm.
The answer is that long term, that is not sustainable. And if you try and keep that over time up, if you try and keep those rolling shifts going, if you try and keep the job and raise 3 children under 6 years of age, etc., then you're not going to be around for long. It's not sustainable. What is the pressure that's got you working every hour God made, or up till midnight scrolling and surfing on the internet? Where's the self-discipline? Where's the focus? Where is the limit to how late you stay up every night? A lot of depressed people are actually not getting enough sleep. And tiredness and exhaustion can certainly result in burnout. Interestingly enough, though, it's not usually hard work that causes the burnout. It's usually more about mixed motives or obligation or striving in a job you don't like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Yeah.
had burnout years ago, but I had one business which created three businesses, which created another two businesses. And I was all over New Zealand. And then I was on my own with two little kiddies. And I had all these hats in the air. And I did it for a number of years until I got sick. I just couldn't cope with everything.
It sounds like the train got away on you and you were riding a runaway train. But,
It
when
was.
that happens, you've got to ask yourself, am I being fair to my spouse, or are they just getting the dregs at the end of the day? And if they're just getting the dregs, how long is that going to last?
Yes, yes.
And am I being fair to my children? Or are they just getting snappy or grumpy or dopey or sleepy? Which dwarf is parenting them? Because you're always tired and you're always grumpy. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Okay, number 5. Is the marriage under pressure? No rest at home as the couple pull against each other, hiding out at work.
Well, when couples go into a marriage, they can often invoke a spirit of competition between them. And there's not a lot of negotiation, there's not a lot of mutual respect. Instead, what there is competing with each other. There's jealousy, there's insecurity, there's comparing yourselves with each other, and there's this antagonistic spirit, and that can really undermine a marriage and undermine the morale of the marriage. As soon as that attitude of antagonism comes into a marriage, it's time to stop the truck and back up. It's time to get some help.
Mhm.
It's hard to be enthusiastic about a marriage when you're quarreling all the time and neither of you can come to agreement. It's just hard work. It's a high maintenance marriage, possibly because you're married to a high maintenance person. You might have even chosen a crazy maker. And if you're living with a narcissistic personality disorder, if you're living with a passive aggressive, if you're living with hostility, that's just hard. Hard to be enthusiastic about coming home to that person. As a matter of fact, you might be coming home to an absolute mansion, but if you don't enjoy the person living there, sharing it with you, it's not going to feel like a mansion. It's going to feel like a dreaded place.
Okay, number 6. Is there a spiritual squatter which has attached itself and is now draining the life out of them?
Yes, in my time of studying demons and demonology and trying to get my head around the crossover between mental ill health and demonic or spiritual oppression, I began to realize that the best description of demonic activity is to think of them as parasites that won't hesitate to try and live off the energy of the human soul. And so they attach themselves like some kind of limpet or some kind of parasite to the nervous system of the person and interfere with their health, interfere with their peace of mind. There's torment, there's tormenting thoughts, there's often sickness, there's often illness, and it's just an incredibly bad time. Now, this is not so common, but you can open the door to these critters. I call them critters because they love to come into places where there is spiritual activity, such as Ouija boards and seances
Oh,
and practicing magic spells and opening yourself up to dark forces is not a good idea. And yes, you can end up with chronic fatigue or some idiopathic sickness that no doctor can diagnose because the cause isn't organic failure. The cause is spiritual failure.
oh, okay.
Did I frighten you?
It's just interesting. I hadn't heard anything quite like that before, but it does make sense.
I suppose over 40 years of pastoral therapy, I've been called on uh, to cast out demons on occasion, and it's pretty dramatic. It's pretty hair raising. There's been a few manifestations right here in my office on rare occasions, I might add, that I could tell some stories about. But the cause is always torment and suffering, and the result is always huge relief, whether emotional or physical or spiritual. And it's good to see that in Jesus' name, no demonic power can prosper against any person who yields their life to Him.
Amen. Okay, is there too much stink thinking? Old patterns of discouraging thoughts as set up in formative years.
Well, if you're loyal to stink beliefs, you're going to do stink thinking, and if you're doing stink thinking, you're going to experience stink emotions. And if you experience stink emotions, you're going to end up in road rage or intoxication. You're going to end up in addiction as you try and flee your torment. I mean, where are you going to go when your own mind turns against you and starts to torment you with condemnation, guilt, failure, inadequacy, inferiority? Where are you going to hide, Kylie, when your own mind turns against you? And that kind of stinky thinking or negative thinking can really create havoc and chaos with your natural God-given entheos.
Mhm,
When your own mind is your enemy and it's not your friend, you can expect to lose enthusiasm rapidly.
mhm. Okay, and number what am I up to? Number 8, is there suppressed grief or childhood historical trauma never acknowledged or reworked? Fear from way back, sustained panic is exhausting.
I call it antique fear, old anxiety that goes way back. This is an old tree that's roots go right down into your childhood when you were terrified, when you were abused, when you were utterly powerless, when you thought you were going to die, when your parents broke up, when your parents started fighting physically with each other, and you got a horrific fright, you got a bad scare, and that also can cause you to bleed courage and to bleed optimism. Hey, if mum and dad can't make it, why do I think I can make it? Hey, if that's what a family is all about, I want to live alone. Hey, if that's what it's like to love a man, I'm going to love a woman instead. Or if that's what it's like to live with a woman, I'm never going to live with a woman. And so we end up shutting ourselves out of contentment, prosperity, and success. Well, that can work against you and grind you down as well. That kind of failure in life is all around you. How do you be optimistic in the face of that? And as long as you're on the edge of an emotional breakdown, or as long as you're on the edge of panic or terror, then who's going to be optimistic about the day?
Yes. Okay, number 9, is it medical? Hypothyroid, iron, zinc deficiency, mineral salt deficiency. Get a checkup, and remember the brain is a biological organ also.
So what we're doing here is distinguishing now and moving away from the volitional, moving away from the mind, moving away from your belief structure and your negative positive thinking. And we're looking now at the brain as a biochemical organ, a giant place of processing, whereby the chemistry is changing constantly as fast as we can think, and there's something missing in the formulation. So this is a truly physical cause of burnout. It's a truly biochemical cause, and we see it in myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is also known as chronic fatigue. We see it as in battle fatigue. We see it as in post-traumatic stress disorder. These things are primarily chemical and endogenous. They are not so much the way you think, they're more about the way your brain isn't working properly. And you may need zinc additives or iron additives. You may need hormone treatment to help you with this, because this is not about trying to think positively. This is about healing a bruised and injured brain. And I would say that of all my burnouts, probably 1 in 10 is not on the right diet, or there's something wrong organically that's doing this. Yeah.
Okay, cognitive dissonance. Living with a double mind is exhausting.
Well, damned if you do and damned if you don't means you stop up short and you stall and you crash and burn because you can't go left, you can't go right. You can't be a singer in public or a musician in public if you get stage fright. If you're scared of blood, you can't pursue a medical career. If you can't go outside in the rain or the pollen, you can't follow a horticultural career, so you're stuck. And a lot of people are stuck. They want a university degree, but they can't stop work to afford it. Or they can't bear their marriage, but they don't want to break their marriage vows. So they're stuck. And a lot of people have just got stuck. They're possum in the headlights, and damned if they do and damned if they don't. So what do? You basically stop or tread water.
Yes. Well, now you've got some antidotes and insights to rebuild on. Shall we go through those? First one,
Yeah.
stop running. Stop.
Stop what?
Stop running. Identify and prepare for and permit yourself to experience your most hideous feeling rather than to continue to avoid things.
Well, you must avoid avoiding the thing you're avoiding, because it'll get bigger and you'll get smaller. So eventually, the fear of the public, fear of conflict, fear of not knowing the answer, fear of feeling inadequate, fear of being exposed as a fraud, fear of traffic, fear of flying. You know, if you keep avoiding that fear, it's only going to get bigger. And eventually, that fear can stop your life. So instead of running and fantasizing, which is a form of escapism, Instead of going to your favorite drug or drink, why don't you actually think about what it is you're trying to fix
Uh-huh.
and find some truth to fix it with? Instead of finding another bottle of alcohol, instead of finding another joint to smoke, instead of finding another fashionable article to buy or another movie to lose yourself in, why don't you actually face up to the thing that you're afraid of and resolve it? Make friends with it, get used to it, resolve it. And then your own mind can heal.
Point two, do some reality checks on your expectations. That's a good one. Very good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're chasing gold at the end of the rainbow, you're going to get exhausted because that pot of gold is never going to emerge, or the rainbow is going to keep shifting.
Mhm.
So, uh, if you're trying to find a marriage partner and they're not showing up, look in the mirror for what you're doing wrong. Get some professional help for what you're doing wrong. If you're creating a bow wave in front of you and scaring all those lovely people that really should be falling in love with you, you better get some help to see what you're doing wrong, to
Mhm.
see what vibes you're giving out, to see what unspoken messages people are receiving from you, and you better front up. Otherwise, loneliness is going to be your number one companion for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And I don't think God teases us. I don't think He gives us a yearning for a lifelong partner and then says, but no, 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 you can't have it. It's not like that. Some people teach that you have to forgive God for the death of your child or your parent or your cat or your puppy. No, you don't have to forgive God for anything. You have to look at your situation, you have to look at who contributed to it, and you have to do something about it. And that takes an honesty, Kylie, that a lot of people just don't have.
Right. Mm. Get help to locate and dwell on the particular insight that you've been missing. Oh, excuse me. On a daily basis until it renews the mind. And that's your book of daily insights that you have.
Yeah, I'll give you, there are hundreds of examples. I'm going to give you one. A lot of children with angry or argumentative parents, they they discover as a child that the only way to keep safe is to keep silent. And once they discover that, they lose the ability to assert themselves, they lose the ability to counter proposition and to negotiate, they lose the ability to defend their perspective and defend their space. Sooner or later, that child is going to collapse and withdraw one too many times. And after that, it's gone. The ability to bond is gone. Withdrawing and retreating is now a life dominating addiction. It's a habit. And so when they should be going in to negotiate and to bond and to achieve cooperation, what are they doing? They're sulking, they're shutting down. It's not working. And so, as a result of one childhood conclusion that gives them a bum steer, it can wreck their entire life.
Mm.
Now, how are they going to find where the culprit is if they try and just do it yourself fix ups?
Mm.
How are they going to find that thing in 10 years that I can find in 10 minutes? This is not about me. This is about what Jesus said. Only the truth will set you free. But where are you going to find that truth? Not in the common places that people look. You won't find it in a bottle, in a glass. You won't find it in a puff. You won't find it in another vape. You won't find it by being the life and soul of the party. Sorry.
Mm.
Truth doesn't hide, but it doesn't dwell where most people look.
Mhm. Yes, well, my 1 hour with you was life changing.
Did I take an hour? It must have been an off day for me.
Oh, I was there for an hour, but yeah, yeah. Well, it didn't take you very long.
I want 15 minutes to hear and understand the problem, 15 minutes to nail the problem, 15 minutes to give you the feedback that you've been missing your whole life, and then 15 minutes to make sure you heard what I said and not what you thought I said.
Hmm.
How does that sound?
That's pretty good. That's pretty cool. All right. So don't work harder, work smarter. The need does not necessarily imply the call.
Yeah, a lot of people think that if there's a need, that is the call. I disagree with that. I think the need plus your own talent is the call. The need plus your own training, the need plus your own motivational gifting, the need plus your passion and your drive equals the call. But if it's only a need, my bad news for you is that you're going to end up with compassion fatigue fairly quickly.
Hmm.
It's got to meet a sweet spot in you as well as a need in society to be sustainable.
Hmm. Yes. Okay, the last one, prepare some pushbacks for the people in your life you are afraid of and stop anticipating their criticism, anger, or rejection.
Well, the world is full of people who won't take no for an answer, people who violate boundaries, people who overtalk you, people who don't listen, people who dominate, bullies from birth, I call them. And you can't make them go away because when they go away, somebody else replaces them. The onus is on you to be as strong, if not stronger than they are, not by bully and hubris and bluster but by actually being able to push back with a gentle comeback that can sit them on their bottom.
Mhm.
And by that, I mean, have you been listening to Carolyn, Trump's press secretary? She has developed this skill to a high degree. No journalist can knock her off her feet. She comes straight back, right between the eyes, to any journalist that gets a bit carried away. And she puts them in their place gently, considerately, and with dignity. And she does it so fast it takes their breath away. I think there's a real education in polite assertiveness from Carolyn. You
Mhm.
want to watch her sometime. She's a phenomenon.
Yeah, I do watch those updates that they do. It's good.
Considered as one of the smartest women in America today, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow.
My
Yeah.
point here is that you need to be able to come back at somebody to protect your boundaries, to put them in their place if they're in the wrong place, and to always do it kindly and with dignity. And
Mhm.
basically, what is assertiveness, as we've already said on this program further back a bit, that it's just having the courageous conversation, stating the necessary, saying what needs to be said, and not allowing other people to intrude on your own perspective.
Mhm. That's right.
All
And
right.
always
Well, I hope this proves helpful. I've enjoyed it.
thank you. Well, thank you, David. I was just going to end with if you always do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got.
And only a fool does the same thing over and over again, always hoping for a different result.
So true.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.